Hello and welcome.
Welcome to beta reading at its best.
I'm Andrea Goyan.
And I'm Lisa Fox.
During this session, we want to share the basics of a system we've created to help writers get the most out of giving and receiving feedback.
Or what is commonly known as beta reading. We'd like to take you through our 4 basic rules and steps toward getting the most you can out of beta reading.
So today's topics. We'll cover a variety of topics today on the subject of beta reading. First, we'll define what a beta reader is and the different levels of beta reading, which will help you to think about what it is you're specifically looking for from your beta readers.
We'll talk today about the benefits to receiving beta reads as well as being a beta reader and how that can actually help you become a better writer. We'll focus also on how to effectively leverage beta readers and their unique skill sets, the ones that they bring through every stage of the creative process.
And finally, we'll leave you with some thoughts on where you can take this in your own day-to-day creative endeavors. So what are the different levels of beta reading? There's the alpha reader, first reader, beta reader, any individual who offers an early read on a story or manuscript, and a critique partner, who's the next level of beta reader. So I've been given and receiving feedback when I was in-person classes for years, but it wasn't until I was involved in an international competition I was totally confused when other writers asked to swap beta reading. I mean, what on earth is a beta reader? I didn't know where to turn. Enter my new friend, Lisa Fox.
Ta-da! So what is a beta reader? Here again, we do have definitions for you up on screen. An alpha reader is your first reader. They are the ones who give that very initial feedback on whether a story is going to work. The beta reader is the one that is giving you the feedback throughout the process of your development of your story. And they are giving an early read, really helping you improve in development, as I mentioned before, through various stages of the process. The interesting thing about a beta reader is that this is a person who can be either a reader or a writer who can help you out.
And then critique partners, which are someone that you have developed and established a trust relationship with. So Lisa and I began as beta readers for each other, and over several years, and I want to emphasize years, we developed into critique partners. Now, all of these roles are sometimes interchangeable in that one person can serve many roles. So why use a beta reader?
Okay, so first and foremost, it's all about communication. We always know the dangers that miscommunication can bring in life and certainly in creative writing. There is no different here. If you miscommunicate in your story and your reader walks away confused, they might walk away with a different takeaway than you intended. Beta readers can help you with that. They can help you ensure that you're communicating as you've intended.
So it's always a challenge to translate your brain to the page. So it's important to ensure that readers see and feel your vision. So many times we know what we want to say, we think we've accomplished it on the page, and then when someone reads it, they're confused, or they even take away the opposite of what we wanted.
And finally, beta readers are actually a gift. They are indeed the people who can help you determine if your story on the page is actually the one that you want to tell. So when can you bring a beta reader into the process? There are several milestones, as we see here on screen, in your story's journey where beta readers can actually be quite useful. At the very beginning, the idea of the proof of concept. So when you're in those really early stages in determining whether your idea actually has legs, from there, the beta reader can help you dig deeper. Sometimes, as we know, our first drafts on the page are really just a brain dump. And that's where we're spilling out some cool images, some ideas, some characters maybe who got stuck in our minds. The beta reader can help us reach into the mess and really help us find the story amidst the chaos. They can also help us line edit. So finding pesky typos, prose that might be a little bit too purple. Maybe there's too much head nodding going on. Maybe you've got some weird dialogue in there. Maybe even some dialogue tags that just are taking the reader out of the story. Often we are way too close to the work to see this for ourselves. Also, as many of us do, when we are actually participating in a contest or submitting to a publication, there are word limits. So if your story is supposed to be a 1,000-word flash fiction piece and your first draft is 1,375 words, a beta reader can help you find those extraneous words or phrases to tighten things up for you.
And as writers, we often have a sense of a problem, some problem spot in the stories. Sometimes we don't know there's a problem spot, or we just don't know where it is. Beta readers can help validate those problems and help us figure out where the areas are and what it is we're really trying to say. And finally, it's great to get a set of eyes on your project before an important submission or launch. And when after those submissions or launches, things aren't going well, beta readers can help us come back to the table and figure out why a particular piece isn't being picked up.
Okay, so back in 2021, we actually conducted a survey about beta reading, and just have some findings here. This is actually pretty near and dear to my heart. Professionally, I am a market researcher as my day job, so this stuff is pretty exciting to me. So a couple things we picked up on. We surveyed 75 writers, again, back in 2021, and we found that about 69% of the time folks were using beta readers. About a fifth of our respondents were using betas 100% of the time. A little over a third using betas 90% of the time. What tells us is that there is a lot of beta reading going on. And certainly the number of betas, the average was about 2 to 3 when considering competitions, major publications. Similarly, the number of regular beta readers was about 2 to 3. So these are the number of folks that writers really do come to depend on as their day-to-day readers. In terms of satisfaction is pretty good so far. About 79% of those we surveyed were either very or extremely satisfied with their beta readers. About a third moderately satisfied, so certainly some room for enhancement or improvement, but this just really underscores the value that writers can put on beta readers in their processes. And then finally, always the question comes up with beta reading is, how much cheerleading do I need to do? How much do I, really look very critically at a piece? And how do you achieve that balance? So we found that most of our respondents said that their beta readers had a pretty good balance of kindness and criticism. But we had about a fifth saying that their beta readers were actually way too kind, super nice, too nice. They really wanted some more intense criticism. So really, this just gives a snapshot again of what people are thinking in terms of beta reading and their levels of satisfaction with it.
So great. You want to use a beta reader now that we've talked about it. How on earth do you start? That's what we're going to look at next.
Right, so going back to our rules of beta reading, here's rule number 1. And you see it here on screen. And this is really what we mean. It's take no, you know what. And what does that mean if you're a writer looking for beta readers? Basically, it means that no matter what a beta reader might suggest, what they might say to you, it's really important to remember at the end of the day, it's still your story, your vision. You can say no if somebody makes a recommendation to you. You can know where you're not willing to negotiate or compromise, but really important, know why you're not willing to negotiate or compromise on a particular point. One of the writers that we had interviewed back in 2021 had given us some feedback in terms of why it's important to not take what from beta reader. And she says, one beta reader wanted to check my work. They asked that I show them the draft after the one they commented on because they wanted to make sure I entered all their comments. That's way too intrusive, and we're not in a student-teacher relationship. Comments should be given freely. I, as the author, can take them or leave them or ask for clarification before I decide to take them or leave them. It's my story. So clearly an example of a writer here who is living by rule number 1 and who has that confidence needed, certainly to take in beta feedback as it comes and keep true to their story's vision.
All right, continuing on with rule 1. The next step is preparing your mental battle armor. So as writers, we feel incredibly vulnerable the second we send out a story for feedback, and it's totally valid to have those feelings. And that's why your battle armor is so important. So these are some of the common hurts we find pop up for a lot of writers. I think the biggest one is the first one, imposter syndrome, because it pops up in all parts of our life. It's a huge one. And I find it's especially true for me when my beta readers are more experienced than I am. I tend to think they all know more. So they're automatically better, and what they say must be true. This is one reason why we have to learn to say no. I had to learn to say no. So, one time early on in my career, I had someone suggest that I change an adult protagonist into a teenager. And it wasn't that her suggestion was bad, but it wasn't the story I wanted to tell. Still, I anguished over her suggestion for a long time because I hadn't learned to say no yet, hadn't learned to trust that my story belongs to me. You know your story better than anyone else. So that's where your mental battle armor comes into play. Trust yourself, trust your vision, and know that sometimes feedback, even if meant to be entirely constructive, can hurt. You may dig through a lot of dirt to find the valuable nuggets.
So, rule number two, it's important to anticipate what you need, but also to adapt. When you are looking for guidance from beta readers, maybe you do, maybe you don't know what you need. But as you grow as a writer and you grow in confidence, this part will become easier once you learn to trust your own instincts. It's okay to say to a beta reader, hey, I'm open to suggestions. But sometimes leaving things wide open like that might leave you vulnerable and your readers a little bit lost. I know when I'm personally starting out with a new reader, I prefer to give them some pretty clear guidelines. It helps both of us. Once I know a beta reader better and we've developed a trusting relationship, I can feel more confident to open the story to more general feedback, though I still want to remember where I am in the story's process or progress. So someone isn't spending a whole lot of time polishing something that's still in its early stages. And we'll get to this in actually a couple of moments. But the point is here, even if you don't know exactly what you want, guiding your beta reader is critical. And here we'll look at some examples of questions to ask. So in terms of evolution, how do we actually evolve the story? Where do we start? It all depends on where you are, as I mentioned, in that story's progress. Starting out, we can see phase one is birthing that word blob. So if your story still resembles a pile of clay or somewhat of a blob, essentially you need to know if the idea is actually worth sculpting. Is it something that's workable? What form might it actually want to take? And why? These are questions to ask your initial readers.
And sculpting. So once you have that clay or blob set, then you've got to think about sculpting it. Once the story starts to look like a story, you want to know more about your characters. We want to know the story's voice. Are there high enough stakes? That's often a problem. People's stakes are too low. And then what about the ending?
Okay, from there, once we have the form you're really looking to refine and craft now, it's time to really get into those details. And some of the questions, do I have the right balance of show versus tell? Are there plot holes? Is my language clear? What about my descriptions? Are they good? Did they help the story? Did they take you out of the story? How well is the story paced? Do I have strong verbs? Do I have too many adverbs? Too much passive voice? Is it active enough? So many areas where you can really start honing in on your just really refining those details. And then once you've got all the details right, you come into that final polish stage. And that is where the final silly mistakes can be caught. Silly things that you might miss because you've seen this piece 85,000 times before you go ahead and submit it. So these are things like grammar errors, punctuation errors, repeated words, missed words, words too close to each other on the same on the page. You've said the same thing 3 times. Are there artifacts in here from prior versions? You change the character's name and all of a sudden he's Bob on page 1 and Bill on page 3. These are the things that your final polish beta readers can help you with. And then also, of course, the ever important, have I addressed the submission requirements, whether it's a contest, whether it's a submission, do you have all the right details in place before you get it out the door?
All right, rule number 3, take what's useful and toss away what isn't. So this is almost always how I begin or end a beta feedback that I've given to somebody else. I say, remember, this is your story. Take what works and throw away the rest. And this is an important lesson to internalize as you receive beta feedback as well. Remind yourself you don't have to say yes to everything. Take in the feedback. If it triggers any negative feelings, remember your mental battle armor, take a breath, and then take a break. Go for a walk, do the dishes piling up in your sink, or fold the clean laundry. Then consider why someone is suggesting a particular edit or asking a question. Try not to dig in your heels too deeply. While their feedback may not entirely fit your vision, and you may just love a phrase you've crafted or a plot twist or a secondary character that people are questioning, ask yourself, why are they calling these particular pieces out? Ask for other opinions. One person's opinion may just be that, their opinion, one opinion. But if you're seeing a trend when you've asked several people for feedback and it's all coming in around the same place, it's probably worth revisiting. And remember, none of this is personal. People wouldn't beta read your work if they didn't care about your success. But if you find someone who just doesn't get you, pushes too hard, or makes you just feel bad, don't ask them to read for you again. Finding good fits can take time, and it's trial and error.
So just tacking on to that, it is really important to be gracious, even if the feedback that you receive is marginal. Not every beta reader is for you. That's one of the lessons that you learn if somebody is just not aligning with you, not aligning with your style, your approach, your vision, what it is you're looking for in terms of feedback. So sometimes you're not going to get the best beta reader, and that's okay. So even if you're not getting the best feedback, it's so important to be gracious. Always thank the beta reader. Try not to be defensive. If they come in with a harsh tone, don't go back at them with a harsh tone. Even if they're making suggestions, think about where and when you're digging your heels in, and if that's really the way to go. But you can always reciprocate. One thing to keep in mind is you never want a revenge beta. So if somebody's given you really harsh feedback on a story, the last thing you want to do is raise your hand when they ask for feedback and just be harsh for the sake of being harsh. This is all about helping one another. It's all about being gracious. It's all about building up the writing community, and building each other up as writers. And that's the most important thing.
Now, Lisa is going to share a bit about a real life experience of how much beta readers helped her develop one of her stories.
Hey, thanks, Andrea. So, what you'll see actually, we've provided it in the handouts to this session, is an example from start to finish of a story that I wrote. It was a 1,000-word story I wrote for a competition. And what you'll see in the handout is the starting point, which is the very original draft, marked up and color coded to show what areas were cut, what areas were modified, and what areas were kept from the very original version before we got to the landing point. Interesting thing about this, as you go through it, there were 7 revisions from that initial word blob through that final polish that got out the door. There were 12 beta readers that I had as part of the process, including 3 core betas who were with me from the very beginning. The good news is the process worked really well. I placed in the contest. I didn't win the contest, but I placed in the contest, which of course is always a win. And I was fortunate enough to be published in Bright Flash Literary Review about a year or 2 after the competition ended. So there's a link here, and there'll be a link as well in your handouts, so you can see start to finish what it actually looks like coming to life when you are using beta readers for your work.
And Lisa, did you say that that was a 3-day competition?
It was a 3-day competition. That is correct.
So seven drafts in 3 days. Whew.
Busy weekend.
All right. So points to ponder as you move forward in your beta journey. How do you recover from bad beta experiences? We all have them. And whether they are because someone's too mean or not good enough, or they just don't get you, as I mentioned before, you got to work on that mental battle armor and how you best recover, even if it means talking to another friend, another writer. That's one way to do it. And then how do you know when a beta is right? How can you learn to trust your judgment? That's something you're going to have to spend some time to learn. How do you convert a beta reader into a critique partner? I think that just happens over time. I mean, that's what happened I can speak for Lisa and I, that's what happened, but you'll find it for yourself. How do you know if a particular beta reader just isn't for you? I think that's probably a gut level reaction. It may take you one time, it may take you a few times, but trust your instincts. And all of these things I'm sort of pointing out are points I'm telling you my take on them, but of course you will find your own way through. And when are enough betas enough? When do returns diminish? When are there too many cooks in the kitchen? Again, something you'll have to figure out. And what is your battle armor? What does it look like? And you'll find that as well. We've given you a couple of clues of things to think about, but you'll have to figure out what it is. Do you go out and have a cup of coffee? Do you call a friend? What are the ways that you do to get through and feel better about the process? And our favorite part of all of this is the last thing, which so we're asking you to just question by being a good beta reader, can you become a better writer? Lisa and I ourselves feel that yes, it absolutely helps you become a better writer. So we would like to thank you and hope that you enjoy your beta reading.
And feel free, of
And
course, to email us with any questions. We'd love to keep the
yeah,
conversation going. As you can see, this is a topic that's near and dear to both of us. And just wanted to alert you to keep an eye out for our soon to be released craft book beta and beyond. So keep an eye out over the next several months. That will be out and available soon.
thank you again for joining us and enjoy your beta journey.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.